everybody's doing well. Please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button. We're not going to do this for too long. However, I did want to take at least a couple moments to do a stream. I already did my 24-hour stream. It was an absolute blast. I loved it. But now we're just hanging out, chatting. So anybody wants to chat about Freemasonry, positive, negative, neutral, any thoughts you have, please let me know. And let's give it a few minutes to see who jumps on. Hello, Scruffy. How's it going? I hope that you are doing well. I don't know if you've joined us for any of the 24-hour live stream, but it's great to have you on. How is it going for you? And Christopher, I'll be going to sleep very soon. Don't worry. I'll be going to sleep very soon. However, I do usually do 1 a.m. streams and 1 p.m. streams, so I figured why not take a few moments to jump on and say hello. I did. Don't worry. I absolutely did. I'll be going to sleep again soon, so it's not going to be like I'm going to be here for too long. But I figured, you know what? I try to keep a schedule, and I do 1 a.m. streams, so why not do a 1 a.m. stream? Just for a few minutes, just to say hello, and just to say thank you to everybody who, for example, assisted me on my 24-hour live stream. Then go to sleep, Scruffy. School is way more important than being on my stream. I promise you that. So get yourself to sleep. Having said that, thank you for being here as always. It is truly, truly appreciated. Now I'll just give it, like I said, I'm probably going to give this maybe 5-10 minutes. I just want to give it a little bit of time, as always, just to see who's going to jump on and say hello. Oops. Good night. Let's, like I said, let's give it maybe 10-20 minutes, see who jumps on, and then go from there. As always, I'm just here hanging out, waiting to see who wants to join us, who wants to jump in the chat to say hello. Don't have any specific topics planned, rather it's just hanging out and chatting. So please take a moment, if you are just joining us, to hit that like and subscribe button. Let's give it a few minutes to say hello. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral, I'd love to hear them. I will be back on tomorrow at 1 p.m. I'm debating what topics I want to have discussed, but I have a few ideas. If there are any thoughts or topics that you want to see covered, please let me know. And let's go like this. Thank you, Oblivious. I could use the help, believe me. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here. Please take a moment to hit that like and subscribe button. I hope you're doing well, and I hope you're having an excellent day. What is new and exciting for you? I'll probably do the stream just for half an hour. I'm just curious to see if anybody will find the stream, jump on, say hello. But then I will, like I said, it's going to be a shorter stream today. I'll be back tomorrow with a much longer stream at 1 p.m. But I do have to get more sleep than I've been getting, that's for sure. Any thoughts on Freemasonry? Please let me know. Any topics you want to see me cover tomorrow? Please let me know that as well. I'd love to hear it. Abs, he came out the other side of this bender. I did come out the other side of the bender. I don't know if I call it a bender exactly, but I did make it out to the other side. How's it going, Mr. Keeps? This is going to be a very short stream. Speaking of, what are you doing here? You have to work tomorrow. You should be asleep. But I definitely did make it out the other side with still a whole bunch of snacks. You'll notice I still got all these snacks, which is going to make a delicious breakfast for tomorrow. Played too much Battlefield 6. I got to get more onto this gaming. Like maybe I should start playing video games on Twitch. Everybody always says when it comes to streaming, the best place to stream is actually to do so on Twitch, which I'm not saying that YouTube, don't be mad at me. Don't knock the algorithm, don't take me out or anything like that. But I am thinking of trying both on YouTube and Twitch, some more streaming, maybe even streaming on both at the same time. I need to get streaming software and a couple different cameras. I couldn't just use a single one, but I would sort it out and figure out how it works. Theophilus, how's it going with you? I hope you're doing well. Thank you, as always, for being here. I know right now I'm at the Super Chat. Adeline, how are you doing? Right now I'm at the Super Chat and the Super Chat and the membership phase of monetization, but I am also getting very close to the eligibility necessary for getting paid through advertisements on YouTube. You need 4,000 watch hours. I'm getting up there, so fingers crossed that might be soon as well, which I think would be really interesting to see. I would probably play either Dead Space or Assassin's Creed Part 3. I mean, Assassin's Creed Part 3, I think would be the most logical because that has all of the Masonic connections therein. So I think that would make the most sense. But we'll see. Oh, Yuri. Is this going to be Yuri's thing now? Which, by the way, I support 100%. Yuri, I think you make a great Stonecutters. What's the word I'm looking for? A great Stonecutter member. You could help rewrite their song. Hello, Courtney. How's it going? Thank you for being here. By the way, your catechisms, right? Your catechism, geez. Your proficiency is coming up very soon, correct? Wait, wasn't it yesterday? Or was it today? It was today, right? Or yesterday, because it's 1 a.m. It was this week. Courtney, okay, so yesterday, or today, whatever. How'd it go for you, Courtney? Let me know how it went for you. What are you, Mr. Keeps? The CRA? I mean, I have Patreon, and then I have, every now and then, some people sponsor the channel, some brethren, separately from all of the super chats and stuff, especially if they're maybe have some interest in specific Masonic topics. And then I have my savings still, but it's growing. And then, savings. I do that as well. So it's still going slowly, but luckily I save money on shoes. So that helps quite a bit. Um, what do I have to study for EA? So it depends on the jurisdiction, because not every jurisdiction has the exact same requirements. However, there is call and response. So questions and answers. And that's pretty consistent, that regard and relate to the degree and the lessons of the degree. And then in some cases, you may be asked to memorize and recite your obligation or your entire, either your entire obligation or specific portions of it at the discretion of the lodge. In some jurisdictions, they actually don't require you to memorize the obligation. It just depends where you are. No worries, Courtney. Then go to sleep. Having said that, congratulations. I hope your proficiency went well. What are the ancient seals? That's biblical, isn't it? I think that's kind of biblical, if I recall it correctly, the ancient seals. But I don't know exactly to what it refers. By the way, I know I keep giving them a shout out, but because I enjoy it. So if you get the chance, I hope you guys will check out the most recent episode of The Promised Land. It's very funny. And when I see good stuff on YouTube, I want to mention it for another reason that I'm trying to create content on YouTube as well. So I want to celebrate the good stuff. It's funny and it's I enjoy it. Isn't there 7 ancient seals? By the way, 7, very important number. Okay, so that it was right. I also noticed how Mr. Keep said Revelation. I feel like everybody always calls it Revelations, even though I'm not even a believer. No, it's Revelation without the S. It's interesting how 7 pops up so frequently in so many different areas, right? Obviously, 7 deadly sins, 7 liberal arts and sciences. In Greece, it was the 7 muses. Freemasonry, 7 is a very important number. I believe in Chinese mythology, 7 is an important number as well. So interesting how you see these patterns of numbers forming in all sorts of different cultures, traditions, histories. Rail, the 7 churches. By the way, how's it going for your rail? Thank you for being here. Seven deadly sins is not biblical canon. It's through the Catholic Church. I mean, but I feel like the 7 deadly sins, I mean, I don't even remember what they are. I remember from the movie 7, which, by the way, is an incredible movie, which I got to watch again. It seems like pretty accurate, though, the sins there. I think most people fall for at least a few of them. Having said that, thank you, everybody, for being here. As always, this is going to be a short stream. I'm still recovering from my 24-hour stream, which was an absolute blast. But we'll just see who joins, who jumps in the chat to say hello. I don't have any topics planned. Tomorrow, I'm debating what topics I want to discuss right now during the 1 p.m. stream. I have a few ideas, but nothing set in stone. So if you have any ideas yourself, please let me know. One thing I was thinking of talking about is I don't like to get political. I mean, it happens, but I try to kind of somewhat avoid politics on the stream. Having said that, Trump's demolition of the East Wing of the White House, I think that might be interesting to talk about. Not so much the demolition, but rather the history of George Washington's Masonic cornerstone, which famously went missing and nobody knows where it is. The reason that Trump got me thinking of that is the cornerstone should be located in the northeast angle of the building. It doesn't always happen, but that technically is where it should be located if it's being placed properly in a Masonic context. And the demolition or the restoration, or call it whatever you want, the renovation is taking place in the east wing of the White House. I'm wondering if maybe they'll find the stone during their renovations. Who knows? I don't know how you lose a cornerstone. It would be massive. But my assumption is either A, it was accidentally taken away by workers and destroyed before it could be installed, or it got installed like in a location, and then during subsequent renovations, it got covered by plaster or covered by wall, whatever it is, or got covered by something, and then they lost the location of it, right? Maybe new plaster, maybe new brickwork, maybe hell, maybe just some type of fancy wallpaper or some type of furniture that can't be moved up against a wall. I don't know, but I'm really curious about that. But anyways, I thought it would be kind of fun to talk about the history of that cornerstone, which is kind of one of those Masonic unsolved mysteries. Oh, don't worry, I'll be getting myself a good rest soon, Rail. Rail, if you want to help me get a good rest, give me a 99-cent super chat. That'll be my sign to go to sleep. I'm just kidding. You don't have to do that. I'll probably stay awake for a little while anyways, but I appreciate that. When you say Hellenized Christianity, when I hear the term Hellenized, my assumption is Greek Christianity. Um, because, Hellenized makes me think Greece, the Hellens. I'm not sure if that's what you mean by that, but that is part of the process. Hello, Santos. I hope you're doing well. Oh, you're talking about the fellow craft. Okay. It's also, when you brought up corn, wine, and oil, it also, and I mean, I can talk about this because it's a public ceremony, but when you are laying a cornerstone in most jurisdictions, you place corn, wine, and oil on the cornerstone before it's installed to represent our brethren. So, yeah. So, corn, wine, and oil, I mean, it's an important part of the cornerstone ceremony. It was part of oh, they ate the cornerstone. Okay. Maybe that could have been what happened. I mean, Masons love stones. I do think it would probably create a good deal of um, gastrointestinal issues. I suspect. I think you'd be quite backed up, but maybe. But yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody knows where the George Washington cornerstone is. It's fascinating to think where it showed up. But George Washington's cornerstone ceremony, there would have been corn, wine, and oil present, and it's placed on the cornerstone. But a lot of people, I thought you were talking about, so I got confused. So in ancient times, stonemasons, and again, this is not anything secret, right? Stonemasons were often paid wages, especially your entered apprentice, in corn, wine, and oil. Um, if you were a more advanced mason, you were actually paid in coin of the realm, which the term of it, the technical term is specie. Um, on cornerstones that are laid at buildings, they usually put corn, wine, and oil actually on the cornerstone itself, which is really interesting. Ever studied ancient Jenna, the biblical name and the basis? I have not studied ancient Gehenna. Gehenna. I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly. Um, Hello, Jay Vortex. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're hitting I hope you hit the like and subscribe button. If you're not done so, even you, Teddy, hope you hit the like and subscribe button. Well, thank you so much. The mystery is that the original cornerstone of the White House, laid in 1792, has never been found. While George Washington oversaw the ceremony, which was conducted by Freemasons, the stone was thought to have been placed in the southwest corner. Should be, normally you do it in the northeast. However, they may have put it there for different reasons, maybe just for building reasons. Despite numerous searches during renovations, Using various technologies, its exact location remains unknown. See, so that's interesting because they should have put it in the east corner. That would be kind of the place which would normally go. It says here the stone was thought to have been placed in the southwest corner, which would be completely opposite. May have been just necessary to put it there. However, um, maybe with renovations, um, interesting. Um, the definite proof, such as the silver plate that was supposed to attach to it, has never been found. No president authorized the destruction of the parts. If I was president of the United States, I would authorize destruction of the walls to search for it. As you should, right? Stonemasonry really is. It's from whence we came. It's our forefathers, our grandfathers, our ancestors in this thing called masonry. However, a Freemason, there are some stonemasons who are Freemasons, I'm sure, but the typical Freemason has no idea how to build anything out of stone. So believe me included, I can't build anything out of anything. Stone, wood, paper mache, anything I try to build is going to be completely destroyed or fall apart. I have no idea. Washington, I think, George Washington, or Washington would probably be a very common name for a lot of kids at the time. We're giving it another probably just 10 minutes that I'm going to end the stream. Having said that, thank you for being here. This is going to be a very short stream just because, again, I am tired and I had a very fun but very long 24-hour live stream. So it's nice to take a break. Well, I think the whole point was trying to get people with the Hamilton play, from what I understand, to think about American history in a different way. Having the characters be black, I think it gives you a different perspective on maybe history. I'm fine with, I don't know, I've never seen the play, so I have no issues with one or the other. But it's interesting always, whether it's an actual historical figure and a real person, or if it's a fictional character. I think when you do things like swapping or changing races or whatever it might be, I think it can be interesting. I think it gives you a new perspective on the character. Like, what does it mean to be a character? What does it mean to be a person? Like, for example, let's imagine, I've always wondered this, like, if I had to describe myself, in, let's say, 10 words, right? I don't think the fact that I'm disabled or the fact that I have no legs would be in the first 10 words I would use to describe myself, right? I don't think disabled would be in the first 10. I don't think disabled would be in the first 20. However, let's imagine I get rich and famous and super popular and they make a movie about me. And they're looking for actors to play me. Are they required to pick an actor who is in a wheelchair to be able to understand who I am fully? Or, would they even need to have the actor be in a wheelchair? Like, let's say everything they talk about relates to my podcasting and my being on YouTube, which really is not affected by the wheelchair at all. Would it make a difference if they portrayed me in the movie as having legs? Would it make any difference to what is it about I always thought this is a really interesting, fascinating philosophical question. What is it like? How do we define ourselves, right? And is what matters more the way we define ourselves or the way others define us, right? What matters more? But I mean, that's an interesting point. Like, what is acting? Could I mean, I'm much more attractive than Jennifer Lopez. We need to get that out of the way, obviously. I don't think anybody can deny that. But would we, like, how do I put this? Could Jennifer Lopez portray like Cameron Adamson in some way? I know it sounds crazy to think, but if she's, I mean, or to pick, I mean, it's using her is kind of a weird thing because no offense, but she's not some like famous actor. But I don't know. Take like I don't know Kate Blanchett. Take like a classically trained actor. If you were to tell them my life story and put them in makeup so they look like me, would they be able to portray me accurately, or does it have to be, a man? And if it has to be a man, does he have to be from Winnipeg? Is that integral to who I am? Does he have to be Canadian? Does he have to be disabled? Does he, have to be a Mason? Like I think it's a really interesting question. That was one of the things I always found fascinating. And I always feel like sometimes we're so quick because in modern culture, to skip past the really interesting philosophical debates to get right to the dumb kind of identity politics debates. Like I remember a few years ago, there was this debate about who could play James Bond, and whether James Bond could be played by a white person or a black person, or a white actor or a black actor. And I thought that was such a fascinating philosophical question because it's like, okay, one thing is like a bunch of people said, well, no, and sometimes I think it was because they were racist. Sometimes I think it wasn't. I just think they genuinely had this belief. They said, well, no, the character of James Bond is a white character, and that's the end of it. But it's like, what about all the other, like, why is that the most important attribute? Because nobody suggested, an American play him. Nobody suggested that somebody, say, not attractive portray James Bond. Like, what is it, like, what is it about a character that we identify as being necessary and relevant to them? And why is that important? I thought that was a really interesting idea. Even like, because you could even do this thought experiment. Like, let's say, I mean, why not though? Like, why not a Chinese James Bond? You know, why is the fact that he has to be British, good looking, why is that not up for question? He can't be disabled. Like, why couldn't you have a disabled James Bond who has like a fancy robot legs of some sort, right? I don't know. I just think it says something interesting about where we draw the lines in which attributes matter for identity and which attributes don't matter for identity, right? When it comes to fictional characters, because then I think you could say that matters to real people as well. Like, as a thought experiment, let's say I decide to create a dating profile. I would probably not think to describe myself as being disabled or being in a wheelchair while I was creating the dating profile. Because I would not consider that to be an important part of myself or what I consider important within me. However, what if I then, make it to the date, meet my, I guess not blind date, but meet the date we matched with on Tinder, whatever it is, and they find out I'm in a wheelchair and they point out, why didn't I mention it in my profile? Which is a very valid point. Like, who decides what matters within identity? I think that's a valid question. This goes back to the Snow White controversy where they citing as little persons. Well, no, I agree. I mean, I thought that was crazy. I'm not obviously an actor. I'm not a little person, but it seemed to me like you're limiting opportunities for people who could use them. So I thought that was crazy, especially because, to my knowledge, they just replaced them with CGI. So it's like now nobody gets the role. No real no real person gets the role. I think they use CGI. I could be mistaken. That seemed crazy to me. It's all art. James Bond, for instance, Ghostbusters. Well, I mean, I'm not a huge Ghostbusters fan, so I never really cared that much about the remake. I loved the um I loved the original. Beyond that, and even the original, I mean, I love it, but it's not one of my go-to films. But even I just think there's a really interesting philosophical question behind this idea of every time they talk about recasting a part, recasting a character, um, and people start to debate what makes that character, like what are the essential attributes of a character? Because I think when you ask the question, what are the essential attributes of a character? In some ways, you're asking what are the essential attributes of an individual that makes them unique? What can be changed versus what can't be changed? Um, right. And then you can apply that to yourself. What is it about you that makes you you? Right. Is it completely physical? Is it a combination of the two? Right. Like, again, let's imagine that they did decide to cast me, do a biopic of my life, um, and they use exclusively words that I've said. So they don't change any single word. Every word that's said in the movie is said in real life, or I said in real life. Um, they the character dresses exactly like I did. The character has the same inflections and same tones in the voice as I do. But they cast a black woman. Would it necessarily? And there's nothing in the movie about um, like relationships. It's exclusively about my interaction with my audience on YouTube. Most people I think would say that's probably wrong, but they wouldn't be able to tell why it's wrong. I don't think because the words are the same, the inflection is the same. Maybe they even managed to imitate my voice perfectly. At that point, like, what is the concern? Adeline. Well, I don't know. I think that's really a fascinating question, Adeline, because if you think about it, would that in some ways create greater degree of empathy? So let's say you and I've seen movies like this in the past. Let's say you produced a movie where it was a movie about slavery, but you switched the races. So every slave was played by a white person, every, slave owner was played by a black person, and you set it in the American South. Would that create a greater level of empathy amongst certain members of the public for slavery and what black people went through if they see someone with the same skin color as them in that position? Or would it feel like you're, stealing something from the experiences and the history of the other race? I don't know. It's a fascinating question, right? Like, again, maybe she'd do a good job. Like, what matters more about who I am, the way I look or the way I think? And what if Whoopi Goldberg can adequately address the way I think? Not because she's been through it, but because she's a really good actor and can, access a certain quality of me through her art. I don't know. It can't be based exclusively on looks, right? I mean, one of those I did see that. I never saw it actually. I saw clips of it. And an interesting example of that, one of my favorite movies, Steve Jobs, stars Michael Fassbender. Michael Fassbender looks nothing like Steve Jobs, but I feel like he, at least my understanding of it, was very much able to at least express the thoughts of Steve Jobs and kind of his mannerisms and his philosophies. I don't know. I do not know. It's an interesting idea. It's an interesting thought. You know, one of maybe the better explanation of this came from literature. It was Stephen King. He wrote Apt Pupil, which became the movie. And obviously, Stephen King is not Jewish, at least to my knowledge, he's not Jewish. Did not go through the Holocaust. However, the book is about a young American boy who comes across a former German SS officer who fled to America and had a different identity. And he was kind of maintained his separate identity to avoid being charged with war crimes. But anyways, a lot of the book and then the movie dealt with the trauma of the Holocaust and World War II and the SS. But what I loved about it is Stephen King, I guess somebody had criticized Stephen King for writing about um, um, for writing about I'm trying to think what the word is, for writing about the Holocaust as someone who's not Jewish. And he said, well, to be a writer is about having empathy, right? The reason I write about these things is so I can have more empathy and better understand what others went through. Maybe that's the same thing with acting. Maybe switching the kind of the races and the races of characters, figures can help increase empathy. They did that in Atlanta as well. They had this famous episode where the joke was these two artists were going to meet Justin Bieber, and he was treated exactly as he is in the real world as like the super big pop star, but they made Justin Bieber a black person instead of a white person. Um, and I feel like there's a really interesting idea in there about again why in a fictional setting does Justin Bieber have to be played by a white person? Is that the most important quality of him? Is that the quality of him that matters the most? And we're going to give it another, anyways, that's a random topic. We're going to give it another few more minutes, then we're going to end this stream. Thank you, everybody who's joined so far. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Don't forget, you can do a super chat of just 99 cents if you so desire. I mean, I'm sure it can happen. I'm sure there's a reason to be pissed too about it because, right, the danger is, to me, the danger of it is fairly obvious, right? Which is you're kind of taking the story and the pain of, in some cases, right, or the accomplishments of an individual and ascribing them to somebody else, especially. But at the same time, I think there's an interesting question there about does it create in some ways more empathy amongst the audience? I mean, and again, it's not just race. Like Lincoln, right? Does Lincoln need to be played by an American, like an American from Illinois? Or even though you have Daniel Day-Lewis, who's British, who you could argue has no connections to Abraham Lincoln, knocked it out of the park. And the other way around, right? I forget who it was, but an American played the Queen, or American played Margaret Thatcher. So, like, do English people need to be played by Englishmen? I don't know. It's a really interesting question. Well, I still think Stephen King is an incredible author, one of my favorite authors of all time. So maybe my favorite author of all time. It just depends. All right, guys. This has been a fun 30-minute stream. Very quick, but now I'm going to be heading off to sleep. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you all soon. Have a great night.